Welcome to Office Hours, everybody. It's Dave, John, and our special guest, Art Hoffman. Art, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Fantastic. So excited to have you here. Art's going to talk to us about revolutionizing how companies, recruiters, and salespeople find, connect, and engage with new potential recruits and clients on LinkedIn. So if you've been wondering how to use LinkedIn as a sales assassin, I think that's how Art's going to help us out. And as always, this is an interactive session. It's built for you. So please hit us up on chat, hit us up in questions. About 15, 20 minutes in, we'll turn on the mics, and we love hearing and chatting with you. So this is our time, and Art, take it away.
You got it, my friend. I'm gonna actually make sure you gave me some share functions. I'm gonna throw a couple of things up on the screen just so that I could talk around them, if that makes sense.
Yes, please.
One of the things that we find in a lot of different aspects that are out there is, a lot of people are looking for that next kind of silver bullet, right? Golden BB is as
the magic. Where's the magic thing?
Exactly. They're looking for the next thing that's gonna make it for them, that they could use to prospect, that they could use to, close that business that they're looking for out there. And I mean, I did it throughout my career. I was a, perpetual marketer, if you will. I wanted to figure out exactly what the best way was to get people in front of me, because I knew that once I got them in front of me, that the product that I had at the time, or the service that I had at the time, was going to sell itself. That wasn't what I was worried about. It was more about, let's figure this out. How do we find that target demographic? And as many people know nowadays, through places like LinkedIn, that's the place that you're going to find the target demographics that you're looking for out there. And if you don't know how to do this, I want to show everybody real quickly. If you do not know how to do a basic search on LinkedIn to find a target demographic, you definitely want to. So let me just bring up my screen here real quick. I'm going to maximize this and then just kind of walk everybody through. Let me know if you guys can see that okay. This is my link. You can see it okay?
Perfect.
Yep. How come yours is mine's all white? How did you make yours all black?
Dark mode in Google. You have
to
go
it's always something simple. It's always something simple.
You have to go into your settings on Google and change it over to dark mode. So, but
See.
yeah, I do it because it kills my eyes sitting here staring at the screen all day long if it's white. But anyhow, so when it comes to finding your search, and I tell everybody that the first thing that you have to do is really refine your target demographic, right? You have to know who you're going after. And it's still a shotgun approach to some extent, where you're trying to hit this target, audience that's out there. But really what you're trying to do is get a little bit more laser focused. So there's different ways to do that. You can use things like Sales Navigator, and I'll get that to in a minute. But that's step one in what I've trademarked as the cold click process. Okay, that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. We help clients with our cold click process to do everything I'm about to describe to you guys. Mm-hmm. Right. Sweet. So step number one, first and foremost, you have to have that target demographic to go after. So how do you do that if you're just using things like basic LinkedIn? Well, you go to my network page up here, you click on your connections, and then over on the right-hand side, when this pops up, you're going to see this little function here called search with filters. And that function is where you want to start if you're just using basic LinkedIn. And you come in here and you see this little toolbar across the top. And if you don't know this, I'm going to speak a little generally right now, and we'll kind of get to some of the details in a minute. But first connections is everybody you're connected with. Second connections is everybody they're connected with. And third connections is everybody that they're connected with is connected with. Okay. That's the easiest way to describe it. I joke around and call it 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but that's effectively what you're trying to do. So first thing you want to do is stay as close to home as possible. Try to connect to the people you're connected to. Okay. The people that they're connected to is the people you want to try to connect to. So hit second degree connections and then pull those up. And you can see from the 12,000 plus people that I'm connected to, I've got 928,000 people that they're connected to. So that's my target demographic, if you will, that I want to get into. Then you can go ahead.
I told you I was going to interrupt you. And I tell you what, guys, I waited 7 minutes before I made my first interruption. So that might be a new show record.
New record.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
But it's with the purpose, of course, is we used to call that spray and pray. Yep. When you could go to things like LinkedIn, and of course, the whole goal today is like, how do I use this tool right? Because it's in my contention, LinkedIn is one of the most abused formats, which is too bad.
Yeah.
You can really make it good. And Art, you're going to walk us through that. But just a few simple things. And so if you spray and pray, like I'm on LinkedIn, I'm going to just randomly connect people because there's 55 million people there. Now you just took that world down to, what was it? 928, under a million.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And
Yep.
if you're a small, so we serve the small business world and the fractional world, you don't need that many.
Right.
Nope.
You need a small percentage. So you just made your barrel, my famous word is snack size. It's something you can actually bite off a little
Correct.
bit. So for this section of it, everybody, just know that LinkedIn's a great tool. Don't abuse it. Drill down, start with good targeting, and boy, it'll work really well for you. Okay, that's my first interruption.
You got it. And this is all stuff that you can do on other platforms like Facebook and Instagram and the like through their demographic information, really to refine your target market. But the difference between LinkedIn and all those other ones is that you get connected with these folks, and then you have the ability to direct message them. And that's where our cold click process really sets us apart from everybody else. And it's exclusively on LinkedIn. You've got that direct messaging platform, but you got to get them connected first. So I'm just going to refine this down even further. You can see the numbers up here on the top as they go down. And when you hit the all filters button over here to the right, you can go through and say, okay, who do I want to go after? Whether you want to target specific companies, schools, organizations. I typically start with things like industries. So let's just say we're trying to go after computer software companies within the United States, for example, right? Let's hit the results and let's see where that gets us. So now I'm down to 27,000 people. Okay.
You just shrank the bucket. You just shrank the bucket even more. That's perfect.
So when we go through with our clients, depending on what product, service, or need that they might have, we try to get this list down to about 1,000 names. So give me an example or two, guys, of a title that you would use within these companies that say you wanted to talk to because they're the decision maker, for example.
Should I go for the easy one?
Sure.
CEO.
2,400.
Okay, halfway there.
So out of the 12,000 plus 12,000, almost 13,000 people I have, they have 2,400 CEOs that are connected to them for me to go after. So if I wanted to target CEOs because of whatever product or service or need that I have, now I have a list of 2,400 people. This is a workable size list because there's a bunch of things that have gone on with LinkedIn here in the last year or two because of COVID and everything else, to where they put all these limitations, right? You can't just send a blanket invite to these 2,400 people and tomorrow you got half of them connected to you. That's not how it works. You have to go through and systematically and even more targeted send maybe 100 a week under the traditional connection request format. Okay. That's what LinkedIn has really honed down on. And they said, look, we're not going to let you just go out there and blast connection request these folks. Even if you do it the right way, and you hit connect over here to the right, and you type in this nice customized message where you add a note and you say, hey, based off of where you work and who you are and what I do, we should connect, kind of thing. That's great. That's all personal and everything else, but you're still only going to be allowed to send about 100 of those a week. And that activity level does go up to some extent if you do it consistently and regularly over the course of 3 to 6 months. The LinkedIn algorithms keep track of all that. And there's a little thing they have that they call their social selling index that's part of that as well. And I'll show you guys where to find some of this stuff later.
I'm glad they did that, Art. Honestly, I'm glad they did it because I think it lays the groundwork for more meaningful. You know what I mean?
It's what LinkedIn's all about, right? Like LinkedIn's the online networking platform. It's the online, the old mixers that we used to go to way back when, where you press the flesh, right? That's what this is all about nowadays. So yes, you're exactly right. And if you're targeting the right people, then you're going to get the connections that you want and that you frankly deserve. Right. So you don't want to just go out there and again, spray and pray, blast to 10,000 people and hope that those 10,000 people, you get 1,000 of them to connect to you, because that's great that they connect. But really, what are you trying to get to? You're trying to get to that sale. You're trying to get to that next level commitment from them, some sort of relationship you guys can have to where both things become profitable, so to speak. So just getting people to connect is one thing, and it's not the way to go about using LinkedIn. You got to do it in a well-defined way. Okay. So now all of a sudden you go through and you consistently come into this system every single day. Now think about this, guys. If you were to do this without any sort of automation, and when I say automation, I don't mean fully automated bot coming in here and doing this for you, because I will absolutely tell you time and time again, big time no. Don't do it. LinkedIn's going to find out. They shut people down all the time. They shut profiles down. They put people into, LinkedIn jail, all kinds of fun stuff. Okay. So when it comes to that when it comes to automation and bots and things of that nature, or even software in general, be very careful what you're using. Make sure that you're not, putting yourself into a situation where you're going to find out that you come into your profile one morning and they go, shut down.
Right.
Nice try. Thanks for playing. Have either of you guys ever had that happen to your profile?
Never had it happen to me. But I am heavy-handed on the I don't know this person to hopefully for all of those lazy linkers, the spammers, the people that walk into the networking event and like, hey, buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit.
Yep.
I can't get rid of them fast enough. So
exactly,
it's irritating, and I haven't been shut down, and but it's irritating when it's used wrong, and
agreed.
And don't use it wrong. And quite honestly, when you think about it, it's like, you know what you're doing. It's kind of like buying a list. If you go, if somebody sells you a big list and you buy the list, okay, you have the list. And if you just decide it's a numbers game and I'm going to hammer that.
Yep.
If that's what you're thinking old school. Our Jason, who's not here today, he and I were talking this morning. We're like, you know what? The big observation of the day, our Friday observation, was we live in an opt-in world.
Yep.
You're not going to bully or force or numbers your way into a conversation or into a deal.
Yep. Cold calls are dead, man. Everybody has them on their phone. They've got, it comes across, it says spam, right?
So
we all see it.
So don't start that way, right? No. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And because you don't want to receive that. And so don't send it. So I got really excited about this, and I've been sharing this with all my clients. Like, this is a way to make friends on LinkedIn the right way.
Yeah.
And it's totally different.
I use the word friends, but I also substitute that with advocates. You're going to find people on LinkedIn that become advocates for your product or service, even if they can't use it themselves. Okay. That's just how it works. So I put this up here real quick because I wanted everybody to at least have a copy of this. And if anybody wants it, feel free to email me afterwards. I can give you all my information. This is all freebie stuff that I give away, but these are the 6 major steps that we go through with clients. So we talk first about target demographic, right? We're trying to refine that. Then we've got to get those people to connect with us from there. And then more importantly, you got to determine that level of interest, right? So that's the level of interest side, guys. That's where somebody's connected with you or you've connected with somebody. And then 30 seconds later, you get that pop-up message that says, hey, buy my shit, right? Like you were saying before.
Right.
Yeah.
That is huge in my world. I'm a huge proponent of telling people, look, if you come to me and say, hey, this is what I want to say in that message, I will be the first to shoot you down. If you're trying to sell something in that first message that comes across to me, you're going to get ignored. You're going to get disconnected from. You're going to get, banned on LinkedIn for that matter. So determining a level of interest can be a very delicate process. However, it's not that hard to do if you do it the right way. And I'll get into that too in just a little bit, going forward. And then we'll talk about responses, and then we'll talk about ongoing campaigns. Again, 100% of what we do is through direct messaging platform on LinkedIn. That doesn't mean that you don't take the activity that you're doing on LinkedIn, move it over to a contact management system. And you can see behind, on the computer screen back there, it says HubSpot, right? That's one that I use. And part of the reason why you use that stuff, contact management, I don't care if it's Sales Navigator or Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever, you have to have a follow-up process. And I'll get into that as well. We can talk about that ad nauseum going forward. So here's the 6 major steps. I'm going to jump back over to LinkedIn real quick, just so that we can kind of whip around on there some more. So you've got this well-refined search now, right? And you've started inviting these people to connect with you. And where most people get stuck, and this is part of why I segued using the example of you need a follow-up system, is that once you start sending those messages out, guess what happens over here on this right-hand side? You start getting all kinds of messages coming back. And I just want to show you guys what my daily activity looks like. And this is just, and you can see here from the timestamps.
You got to play your screen.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Thank you.
That's all right.
Making me.
That's okay. I do it all the time. I've gone to like 15 minutes referring to something nobody else can see.
I select the box and then I forget to hit share. So anyhow, but you can see this is all my messaging today based off of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So starting at 5:18 this morning, we had messages going out the door. Now, yes, we use some automation, but I promise you guys, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day. Ask my wife. She hates it. She's not a morning person. Okay. But the idea is you have to have those messages going out the door so that you can have the messages coming back in. So let me teach you a little trick if you guys don't know this yet. Easy way to get around all of this minutia of the outbound messages is to hit this little button right here in the search messages bar and sort by unread. There is your to-do list for the day. Those are all the people that you need to respond to in any given day or any short period of time. Okay. So this is what I teach everybody when we're learning how to use LinkedIn. I'm like, look, don't worry about looking through that big laundry list of stuff that's there. What you really need to do is focus on the people that are talking back to you and saying something back. And then when you pull that person up, okay, long story short, let's just use Greg here as an example, right? He got back to me and says, hey, I've worked on from moving at your direct data company. I say, great, thanks for letting me know. And I'm going to do this real time so you guys can see how this works, okay?
Yeah.
This is step one of that follow-up process that I told you guys about, right? So I went out and I created this awesome search. I asked Greg to connect with me. And if I go back up here on the chain, you can see all the messages that I've sent Greg over time. But this was the first one. Should we connect? He said, yes. I said, thanks for connecting. Let's talk about you and me, see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. He didn't reply right away. So then I sent him another message about 30 days later. This one was on April 1st. This one back here was on March the 25th, right? So you can see the kind of the separation in there. They're not back to back. They're not sequenced out too close to each other. And then the last message that he replied to was sent on, April 1st here, right? So he replied to that, got back to me and said, hey, Art, I'm not interested at this point. You know, I've moved on from that company. And I say, Greg, thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. Please, 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 if you guys take anything from this presentation, always respond to everyone.
Yeah.
I don't care if they're telling you to take a hike and go jump off a cliff. Say something back to them, acknowledge that you've seen their message, and then most importantly, respect what they've asked you. So in this particular case, he says, hey, I'm not interested in no longer at that company. So what I do, and this is what I teach everybody, this is all part of that follow-up process. I copy this conversation. I go over here to my HubSpot category, right? I look up Mr. Gregory Smith because I have my HubSpot synced with my LinkedIn and it zaps all of my information over there for me, right? So now I pull up Gregory Smith here and I do a little log my email, which was my conversation with him, paste that information in there and I log that activity so that I know where Greg stands. And then over here in my pipeline, where I know he's in this particular portion of my pipeline, I move him to closed, bounced, or opted out. So now he's no longer going to get bothered by me. I've acknowledged what he said to me over here on LinkedIn as saying, hey, look, appreciate you letting me know, right? And I'm not going to bug you anymore.
Right.
You need to do that with people, even when they tell you no.
And
everybody knows what to do.
Especially when they tell you
yes,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's all part of our process and that's all part of that system. So again, you come back, you find this well-defined list, you ask them to connect with you. They finally respond to you based off of whatever sequencing you set up after the fact. You acknowledge to what they've said. You go through your follow-up process. And you put them back into your contact management system. Now, had Greg told me, hey, Art, I'm interested, I would have done everything the same right here. The only difference is that when I went to log this email, I would have scheduled a follow-up task to call him in 7 days.
Right.
If I don't hear from him, or shoot him another email on another direct message on LinkedIn or whatever the case might be. So everybody asks me typically at this point, they say, well, what's the best way for me to continue to communicate with this person, right? On LinkedIn. And I say, obviously, if you guys are communicating on LinkedIn, start the conversation there. So I'd come back in and I'd, respond to Greg here, for example, and then maybe another 7 days passes and he still hasn't responded to me. And I go, you know what? I really want to get in touch with Greg. I looked over his profile here and I see what he's doing and I know my product or service can help him. So I really want to get in touch with him. If you guys don't take advantage of this button right here, you're losing a lot of information. Okay. There's Greg's email. There's his Twitter. There's all kinds of stuff. And this is just Greg.
Yeah.
Here's the stats, guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's super important I don't look at LinkedIn as a platform. I look at it as it's just a very large room. And the first things you talked about here are, it helped you get down to, all right, what it's a big room with a lot of people in it, but you can pretty quickly shrink that room.
Mhm.
to the right folks. And then you have to behave, right? Like everything you have on your right side there, those are people in a room that you met and started talking to. So I think
Exactly.
it's best to think about this. This is a room of friends you're going to meet and people you're going to talk to, and not a place to think about this is a population that you're going to hammer into submission. That
Correct.
is huge because
Correct.
It's kind of like
unfortunately,
speed dating, right? I mean, you're not going
yeah,
around sitting at all
Yeah.
these tables and trying to smooch everybody at the table.
Yep.
You're
right,
Yep.
right,
And
right.
and when you're having these conversations, to use that analogy and carry it on further, this is their business card, folks.
It is, yeah.
Take their business card.
Mhm.
98% of people on LinkedIn have an email address associated with their profile.
Mhm.
48% of people on LinkedIn have a phone number. And guess what? Majority of the time, that phone number is not their office line. We have
It's
to
their
go
cell.
through a gatekeeper. It's their cell phone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's the kind of information that you need to gather as you're using LinkedIn, and you need to put it into that contact management system that you're using. Because
Mhm.
again, going back to the contact management side, if I wanted to go through here and email Greg, I could. If I had his phone number, I could go ahead and make that outbound dial if I wanted to.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's all part of that follow-up process and how far, or how aggressive you want to be with, getting your product or service out there to folks that are available. Okay. So
Mhm.
this is the day-to-day stuff that we coach people through when it comes to our cold click process. We say, look,
Mhm.
we're going to do all that list development stuff. We're going to do all the invitations for you. We're going to do all the somewhat automated messaging back out to everybody that's chosen to connect and those people that have not responded yet, because that's really what our cold click process does and what sets us apart from most other people out there. Our job is to get people to engage with you. It's your job to continue that engagement and take it where it needs to go from there. Because we tell people all the time, if somebody responds back to you, they drop out of our system on purpose.
Yeah.
That's now your responsibility.
Right.
That's your
That's big
lead.
learning
That's your
for a lot of
CRM.
people.
Then it goes from there.
Yeah.
A lot
Yep.
of people who are entering the fractional world, that's big learning. It's like, listen, this is not about marketing automation and sort of it's not a numbers game. It's a very meaningful connection game. And in our world, if you're a fractional whatever,
Yep.
it's either you're looking for 4 or 5 customers a year.
Mhm.
That's it. So the volume, if you look at your profile here, or what Dave does on a bigger side in service of businesses, smaller businesses, well, they just need more volume,
Yep.
which doesn't give them permission to, turn it into some, abuse, abuse it. It's just, you have to work at that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I get nerdy for just 1 second with you?
You sure can, man. Go
Do
for
you
it.
have a tool that you use to plug in your LinkedIn with your HubSpot?
Zapier.
Zapier? Okay. I
Yeah.
use Seamless AI and that works for me, but I just was curious if something that you
Yeah, it
possible.
depends on the software that you're using
Mhm.
too, because there's some
Right.
softwares out there. You can see there's a couple of them up here. These are some of the softwares that we use in the background to do some of the automation,
Right.
if
Yeah.
you will. And I call it semi-automated because all this
Mhm.
is started by us. But within those programs, you can pull
Right.
CSV files that you can use to upload that data into things like HubSpot or Salesforce. And
Yeah.
that's really key. You got to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Right.
So
Todd asks, what was that connection tool?
the connection tool, there's two of Zapier.
Zapier.
If you're not familiar with it, it's right here, guys. I'll just throw it
Yeah.
up on the screen real quick. Zapier.
And
You can
I'll
go
type in
through.
mine too. So
Yeah, you can go through and create different types of Zaps for all sorts of different programs. And I mean, it's endless. I mean, Zapier is one of them that's out there. Seamless AI is another one. There's a bunch of different ones that they have, but it basically just takes data from one internet site, goes and scrapes it, and moves it into your contact management system for you if that's what you're going to be using it for. So yeah, good question.
So you use Zapier to connect what's happening on LinkedIn to your HubSpot.
Yep.
Yeah. So every time somebody gets processed through our software on our side, and I'm not afraid to share what the process is. We use Octopus. We use Dripify. They're both done by the same companies that are out there. But again, Dripify is a fully automated one. If you want to set up sequences and things like that, it's also a little bit more user friendly to the eye. And I'll give you guys kind of an example here. This is what a sequence looks like in Dripify. Okay. So it's nice and pretty and on a kind of whiteboard, if you will. It's the same thing, though. It's the same thing I just described to you guys earlier, where it's going to invite somebody to connect, wait a few hours, send them that initial message, do some other functions if you wanted to, et cetera, et cetera. And I will caution you guys, make sure you check with whatever industry you're in before you go putting an automated software on LinkedIn.
Right.
Because there's a lot of industries out there that do not allow it to happen. You don't want to go pay for the software and not be able to use it. The other one over here is Octopus. These are both by the same company, by the way. Dripify is just their newest, fanciest version for fully automated services. But Octopus is a little less user-friendly and a lot more manual. So you can see in here, these are our sequences that we have to build out. And literally we have to go in and go, okay, number one, start, let it run its thing. Number two, start, let it run its thing. And we do that on purpose because we want everything that we're doing within LinkedIn to look, act, and feel as if it's a normal human being.
Right.
That's what gets you in trouble.
I'm gonna pause this for a minute, and for the population who's on the call and who will be listening to the recording and all that kind of stuff, what they're saying right now is that's a lot of tech.
Yeah,
it is.
That's a lot of tech. So
while we talk about that, I'm going to activate everybody to talk if they want to loop in. Is that cool, Art?
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
And I'm not saying it's bad, right? But so let's continue the conversation, of course. But when you have that much tech, a lot of people are like, geez, so I'm going to do a little coaching here. You don't have to use all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
You really don't. And
right.
If you're in Voyager, we have a sales and marketing operating system specifically for the 5 clients you're trying to get this year. So I think there's for those of you who are looking at this saying it's a lot of tech, probably better to go learn what it does and not think that you have to go get that tech to do it. And I'll tell you what. So if I'm just starting my fractional practice and I'm looking for 3 to 4 customers, I don't have to, my pool doesn't have to be 28,000 people, the deals I have to go. So all of this kind of comes back to simple spreadsheet stuff when you're just trying to start a fractional practice. When it's bigger than that, for those of you like myself, if you're fractional and you've got a client, that's where all of this, you kind of need it, right? Your clients need these things that Art's talking about. But as a fractional, the processes that are in this technology, moving your data from LinkedIn to your spreadsheet, you can just do that by hand. Because you just don't need that much volume. But as it gets bigger, so the methodology is good, but you don't feel like you have to buy all this tech. Just have LinkedIn, and they know this already, Art, in the group is, have LinkedIn, use the free version of HubSpot. You're good. You're good. Yeah. But there's a lot to learn from what that tech can do.
And the reality is, just like you guys are coming in as the expert in your field to fill that niche and that need, that somebody's hiring you because they don't want to have to learn it all for themselves.
Exactly.
Go find the person, ourselves included, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of companies like mine out there that do these different types of processes on LinkedIn. Find somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't be the brain surgeon to perform your own brain surgery.
Right.
Go find the one that you like and let them do that. That's what you're paying them to do.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're getting the results that you're looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
One last little tip before I turn it back over to kind of open up, things. I know we're about 15, 20 minutes in here. So if you guys have never done this, if you really want to make yourself look presentable on LinkedIn, remember that this profile page is what everybody looks at before they probably respond or even accept your connection request.
Yeah.
So if your profile page is not up to speed and it doesn't have all of the things that you want it to have in there, your about section, all of the wonderful accomplishments you've had throughout your life, endorsements, you name it, then go fix that problem today. Okay. That's the first thing. Second thing is, if you want a couple of tips and tricks, there's stuff on my website under blogs, 5 things you can do right now on your LinkedIn profile to help improve it. Go track that one down. But if you've never looked at this function up here, which is edit your public profile page, there's a way to actually edit the link that is used for your profile. Okay. And all you have to do is hit this little pencil button here, and you can change that last section to be whatever you want it to be, as long as it's not being used by somebody else. So if you just start up a LinkedIn profile, you're going to get a bunch of random numbers and dots and things like that in there, right? So come in and customize that to make it specific to who you are and what you want it to represent, so that way, whenever you go to send out your profile page to another person, another human being out there, and they say, hey, are you on LinkedIn? Yes, I am. This is what they're going to see now.
Yep.
They're not going to see all those random numbers and dots. And what it also means is that you're a professional. So you're not going to hand somebody a business card that's got a lot of random stuff on it, right? It's going to be everything, all the key data that you want them to have. So do that, make sure that it's all there. And those are my little tips of the trade. So I'm going to back up real quick, go through the process once again, and let you guys know what you should be doing if you want to use LinkedIn to do this type of structured marketing. Target demographics, number one, right? Then from that target demographic, and I'm actually going to use my visual because I forgot I still have it up. I'm going to pull that up for you guys again real quick, right?
Yep.
And I'm hitting the share button this time. So
you are a genius.
You've got the target demographic well defined. You know who you're going to go after. Start inviting those people to connect with you. You can only do about 100 per week. There are ways to do invitations via email to the tune of about a couple thousand to 10,000 a month, but don't go there, in my opinion. If you want some, tips on that, reach out to me. I'll tell you what the story is behind it. And then you got to find the level of interest with people. This is key because we spend the first couple of weeks going through a process with our clients that really helps them to define what their messaging is going to look like. And I've got all these fun little tricks to do to make sure that you're asking the right questions about the person you're connecting with and that it's about them first before it's ever about you. Okay. So determine that level of interest, find out if they're interested with you, respond to people, all yes, no's, maybes, etc. And then put them into some sort of sequence within LinkedIn for everybody that has never responded to you. And then outside of LinkedIn in a contact management system for people that have. Our process goes out about 15 months. And what we found is that you run 100 people through our process over 15 months, you're going to have gotten a yes, a no, or a maybe from at least 60% of them.
Good numbers.
Think about it, guys. When was the last time you did a campaign of any sort and you got a 60% response rate? Good, bad, or indifferent. You got a 60% response rate. That's what this process is designed to do, and that's what it does going forward. So, with that, what questions you guys have? I'll leave it open because I'm here.
I want to for folks that are a little bit further along, and again, I'm a nerdy tool guy, but how about Sales Navigator? What do you
love Sales Navigator? Yeah. So here's why I would use Sales Navigator. I'm going to show you guys real quick why I would use Sales Navigator and why I tell people, look, if you are going to do this on a regular basis, spend the money. There's companies out there that you can get Sales Navigator to discount costs through. You can also just pay the $100 a month and get it on a monthly basis. But Sales Navigator's up here. How you find it is you go to work and then you go down here to Sales Solutions if you have not signed up for it yet. Okay, so that's how you get to Sales Navigator. LinkedIn, you're welcome. Send me my residual check. When you sign up for Sales Navigator, you're going to have this little button up here, and it comes up as its own tab. And then you're going to select your Sales Navigator function. It's going to bring you into this fun little thing that is overwhelming and got all kinds of stuff in there. Okay, but it's really nothing more than that search function that I showed you earlier with some other lights, bells, and whistles. Okay. So again, I'm going to take you the easy route, which is click on lead filter because you're trying to find leads. Okay. Click on the type of connection that you want to find, which in this case are going to be those second-degree connections. You're going to do the same things where you're going to go through and you're going to look at geography, right? So I'm going to go North America. Okay. And you can see that there's this buttons that are over here now that say include and exclude. That's a huge deal because if you want to exclude certain things, companies, titles, industries, whatever the case might be, maybe your previous company that you work for that you have a non-compete with and you can't ever solicit business from them, that's a great way to do it. So you can go through here, put in all those factors in there. I'm going to go back and just pull up a random one that's in here and just show you some examples of that exclude button. So say I wanted to find all my second-degree connections in North America that are financial advisors. However, I want to make sure that I'm only looking at specific job titles. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look at advisor, and I'm going to say I want everybody that's got an advisor in their name. So I'm going to hit include and put it in there. But I don't want people in compliance. That's how you use that function. Okay.
Room.
Yep. So you're cleaning up the room. You're taking this room in this particular case of 34,000 people, and you're chiseling away at all the people that you don't want, and you're asking them to leave. That's the best way to describe it. Okay. We're not going to work together ever. So you go through and you put that well-defined list in there, and then you just save your search up here. Now, when you save a search, the awesome part about it is that it stays there. And as other people connect to you from that search, if anybody they're now connected to fills out any of these categories, guess what happens? They show up over here in this wonderful little column called new results. So I set up this sales director campaign a while ago, and I've got 372 new people in there that weren't on that list before. If you use Sales Navigator, you don't have to come in and rebuild the list every time. That's why you want to use Sales Navigator. It's a huge time saver. You get these kind of lists that pop up. And now what I can do is I can come in here and say, hey, out of these 299 people, I want to go in and specifically look at them and say, okay, are these people that I want to talk to? Yes, they are. I've got all these different criteria in here of things I do and do not want to see. And then let's just say there was something else I wanted to take out, I could. And then ultimately, these are the people that I start going through and marketing to. These are the people that I now go in and save them to a specific group in here and maybe invite them to connect, invite them to an event, whatever the case might be. That's the difference between Sales Navigator and basic LinkedIn. So once again, let me show you on basic LinkedIn. We did this search over here, right? Click on My Network, click on Connections, go to Search with All Filters. You go through and you put in all your search criteria and you have this nice little one warm and fuzzy list. Guess what? When you leave this page, it's gone.
Yep.
Gone. So in Sales Navigator, I don't have to worry about that. All I got to do is come back into Sales Navigator, go back to my saved searches and go, hey, I want to go to my current connections in the insurance world. That was the list I created. All my search criteria is there. I know exactly who I'm going after, what, where, when, and why. And then I can use either the new people or go after some of the old people, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
And if you get a little busy like me, it'll send you an email like once a week.
Yeah.
Updates to your list.
Yep. Exactly.
Art, what's the macro data on LinkedIn right now? Either as a percentage or total number of professionals who are on LinkedIn? I know like a couple of years ago, it was like 27% of professionals are on LinkedIn. Do you know what that number is now?
I know that they are getting very close to 1 billion users worldwide.
Oh boy! So
they were at 750 million a couple of years ago. The pandemic really increased because of the Great Resignation, right? Everybody's talking about the Great Resignation. So everybody's throwing their profiles on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is not your traditional social media site, though. And that's the other thing, guys, that I want to caution you on. When you're on here and you're active and you're doing stuff on LinkedIn, which you should be, okay? And I mentioned earlier this social selling index that LinkedIn has, right? That they talk about, they basically keep track of the things that you're doing on LinkedIn and how well you rank based off of their criteria. Here's where you find it. If you want to just go
Sales
Google,
Navigator.
Yeah, it's in Sales Navigator. And all you have to do is go in there and click on your picture and then go to social selling index, and it's going to tell you where you rank. Now, these numbers are off because it's telling me where I rank versus my own people and my own company kind of thing. So don't keep that in mind. What you really want to focus on are these 4 categories right here. These are the things that LinkedIn looks at when it comes to what your activity level is on LinkedIn and how well you're doing what they want you to do. So think of it this way. You're playing a game. You know the size of the field. You know the dimensions. You know some of the rules. This is how you execute on some of those rules, okay? This is how you make yourself more efficient. This is how you operate better, is you come in here and you make sure that you're hitting these criteria and that this number here is well over 70%. Okay.
So let me expand on that for the group here, because we tell our members this all the time is, how do I know if my LinkedIn page is right? How do I know that? And so there's 2 ways you can do that. One, if you go into your LinkedIn and you're just building it out, or you kind of want to clean it up, LinkedIn is going to tell you, I don't know if they still do it, Art, but when you're doing stuff to your page, posting, updating your profile, all those sort of things, I think they tell you along the way, it's like you're almost a rock star. They kind of give you some. It
comes up here on your profile page, and it literally tells you there's like a box that shows up and it says you're almost there, and there's like this progress bar that comes across. So you want to check all those boxes for sure.
Which means it's a room, and that means you brush your teeth, you got a nice jacket on, you're presentable. Now, the next thing, right, is, so do that. And we coach that all the time. Like, just don't, the top where it says InLink Advisors. It should not be LinkedIn's artwork, right? That little
No.
stupid
Right.
thing that you.
Right.
So but that's putting on the tie or dress and brushing your teeth and combing your hair. The next stage is Art. What you were just talking about is okay. Now you can do a little bit better though, and that's it. When you go into here and start paying attention to these, and it's going to literally tell you what to do.
Mhm.
Yep.
What that
Each
means
one of these-
is what that means to all of it, to everybody. I say this all the time. Is that is your referability. The better you are here, the more referable you are. And so it's easy to do, but you have to do these processes in order to kind of get there. So
Absolutely.
the teeth are brushed. Now you're referable.
Right.
Correct.
Mhm.
So this is a great way to start. So apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, we're good. We have some questions. Janice says,
Sure.
I can probably guess the answer, but could Art please comment on the messaging feature within LinkedIn, its use and its effectiveness?
Absolutely. Okay. Great question, by the way. So there's a messaging feature inside of Sales Navigator. I'm not a huge proponent of it. It's called InMail. Okay. Every time you send a message in there, it comes across with a stamp on the beginning of it that says InMail. Most people see that, they think advertisement, they immediately shut down and it's gone. Okay. So I do not encourage you to use InMail on Sales Navigator at all. What I do encourage you to use though is the messaging feature that's over here. And I more lean you towards this bar that we're looking at right now. Reason why is it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Jan, where when you're going through and you're responding to these folks and you want to be able to look at somebody like Greg's profile, you can easily just click on his name and in the background, his profile pops up. So now you can say, oh, Greg's a regional sales director. You look at some of his data, you find some sort of what I like to call in my world, relatability. Sales is about relatability, people. If you haven't figured that out yet, and I don't care what you're out there doing, whether you're dating or trying to sell a product or service or whatever the case is, if you cannot relate yourself to that person across the table, they're never going to do business with you. Okay. And if they do, it's going to be a very short-lived relationship. Okay. So come in here, find that relatability, send your response back. This bar allows you that function to do that. I want to show you what happens when you come up here to messaging and you try to operate out of it. It's very clunky because you can't pull up that person's profile at the same time that you have that message over here on the right-hand side. Okay.
Yeah.
So I always coach people, use this toolbar over here, use the unread function to get to your important messages now. And then let's say, for example, you respond to Greg and you go, you know what? I need to keep him in my short queue because I'm not going to put him in my contact management yet, but I do want to keep him in here and I'll come back to him at a later time. These three buttons right here allow you to do that. You can just mark the messages unread again, so that when you search over here for unread messages, it'll pop back up over there on that side. Okay. That's how that works. So using messaging, and I hope I answered your question, Jan. If I didn't, please let me know. Messaging is key. You got to use it. Absolutely. You make sure that you're using the filter functions that are here. Try to use this bar so that when you pull up somebody's message that's here, you can also pull up their profile in the background and then find that relatability that you need to answer that response that they've sent you going forward. But even more important than all of this is all great. You've gone through, you've replied to messages and everything else. And I keep hitting on this and I apologize for beating the dead horse here. More important than all of this is taking that conversation and moving it over to a contact management system that is going to remind you when to call that person back or to reach back out again or leave them alone or whatever the case might be, because LinkedIn does not have that function. And we've all seen it to where we're like, oh, that's great. I got this queue here, but it's not going to remind me that I need to call Jan Kelly back on any date, time, or location or whatever the case is. Okay.
Are they looking at developing that?
It's in the works is what I heard. It was supposed to be first quarter of this year. But they, as all things, I'm sure got pushed back because of COVID and whatnot.
Yeah. We've got a bunch more questions, Art. So
okay,
let's do it.
I'm just gonna wrap them up for you, and then you can take them in the order that you want. But
sure.
Zal actually posted a link, and Mary asked about the background. But to get that rating of your LinkedIn site, Zal actually found it. The LinkedIn link is linkedin.com/sales/SSI. So That's available to the public. Janice wants to know what the cost of Sales Navigator is. And Nigel has a question that it'd probably be easiest if you went into chat to read, because he's talking about people are looking in your profile in anonymous mode. And how do you get around that? For
Yeah,
those.
unfortunately, you can't get around people deciding to be what I call voyeurs, window shoppers. They're going to do it, and that's just because they've got their settings on their side as being in anonymous mode. So, yes, and there's different ways that you can use people that have viewed your profile to actually create those lists to do the connection request, and so on and so forth. But I'll caution you a little bit on that too, because if people have visited your profile and looked at you, and they haven't asked to connect with you or haven't accepted your connection request, they probably don't want to connect with you anyway. So it could be, you could be barking up the wrong tree. So I'll get to your question more in detail here in just a minute, Nigel. Awesome. To answer the question about Sales Navigator, and that came, I believe, from Mary, wasn't it?
Yep.
You can, when you get into Sales Navigator and you go and you look at some of the features that are in there, they've got a monthly function, and then they've got an annual function. So if you pay annually, there's obviously some sort of discount that they do, but you may not want it for the next year. You don't, if you want to just try it month to month, it's typically about $100. And I'd say around $100, because if you're working for a major organization or whatever the case might be, go ask them if they have a corporate relationship with LinkedIn, because you might be able to get a discounted package there. You could also talk to people like me and others out there that have discounted rates on Sales Navigator for people, to where it can be as cheap as $50 a month. However, LinkedIn doesn't like us to be selling long-term packages at $50 a month. So they'll say, we'll allow you to sell a license to somebody that is good for 2 months at $50 a month. And then they have to renew and do it all over again, and so on and so forth. So there's different ways to try it out. They will also allow you to try it for a month for free. So if you haven't tried it in the last 6 months or used it, if you come up, as I mentioned before, if you go to LinkedIn here and you go to work and you go to Sales Solutions, it's going to take you into this particular page here, which is the Sales Solutions space for Sales Navigator. And then it's going to walk you through all the numbers and details that are in there. You can request a demo if you want to, things like that. But then it'll also say you have this version of a free trial that's available. It's a 30-day free trial. They ask you to put your credit card on file so that they can auto charge you at the end of it if you want to. But if you cancel in that first 30 days, they don't charge you anything. Okay. So you can go in there, and I've done this with people before, get the free trial, create all those lists, grab as many names as you want to and put them in your software over here on this side, so that you can, go through inviting all those people to connect, and then let the program go if you really want to. Little things that are out there. So what is the SSI link? Okay, Roger, you had a question about what is the SSI link. That's the Social Selling Index link that one of the other gentlemen on the call had tracked down for us. So if you go to that link, it'll tell you what your social selling index ranking is. But if you have Sales Navigator, you can just go right into Sales Navigator itself, click on your profile, hit social selling index, and it's going to tell you right there.
So for those of you who are paying attention to that, we want to be over 80, or is that right, Art?
It was 70.
Over 70. Okay.
Yeah. It's really hard. It's really hard to get over the 80-90% range unless you're like a social influencer that's on there every single day, posting, commenting, liking, substantive comments on things, not just, oh, that's great, or thumbs up, or whatever. Literally typing out comments, things like that, sharing other people's activity, whatever the case might be. You can see, I mean, this is what I do for a living, and I'm not even, that high.
Do you want to know what mine is?
It's partially because I don't like berating people with nothing but posts from my profile on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah. Celebrate everybody else. If you're looking for a shortcut to getting this rating up, celebrate everybody else.
Absolutely.
Celebrate them. Let them know you're awesome. That's a great share. I read it. Freaking sharing it. You're doing great. Talk about stuff that's really interesting and cool. If you want to figure out how to get your social selling index up, which just means you're a nice person in the room.
Yeah.
Celebrate it. It's so funny how it's just not about you.
And that's exactly what it's got to come down to. You have to be talking about the people that you're connected with and asking them questions like, hey, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Things like that. Everybody wants help. Everybody loves to talk about themselves. So, keep that in mind when you're trying to start a conversation with somebody on LinkedIn. You want to find out more about them, because guess what? They're also going to tell you whatever their pain points are. So
totally.
Zal asked, how do we ensure that we're not in anonymous mode?
That's going to be under your profile. So if you go to your profile page and you go to things like settings and privacy, that's in here. That's where you're going to find it. So again, let me back up. I went kind of quick there. Let me back up real fast and I'll show you what I mean. So when you come up here to your me function, if you hit the drop down menu and you go to settings and privacy, you're going to have this laundry list of stuff that's going to come up here. And honestly, guys, there's probably 1,000 different things that you can turn on or turn off. If you start here at the top and you look at account preferences and things, all of these things you can change or alter or adjust in some way, shape, or form. It goes through all of these different categories. Your sign-in security, visibility is where you're looking at specifically, by the way. Long story short, that's where you're going to look in and you're going to say, hey, at my profile viewing options, what do I want in here? Anonymous LinkedIn member is typically checked. You can say, hey, I'm putting my face out there, so to speak. Okay.
I want to throw this out. If anyone does want us to turn off recording for you so you can ask a specific or sensitive question, now is your chance. So just let me know. And we're getting a little bit of background noise from you, but would love, if you've got a question, we'd love to hear it.
The other thing too, guys, if you have a question you want us to answer, go to the Q&A section, type it in, and we don't have to answer it online. Just put in there, answer after the fact. But if you type it into the Q&A section, we can answer it after the call for you in like a direct email or something like that.
Right on.
So, hey, Zal, can you come off of mute and on the video? I know Zal. I got to ask him stuff like that because he knows.
Yeah, I'm off. I'm here. I don't know if my video is working, but go ahead.
I can turn you on if you want.
Such a good-looking guy.
He's got a nice picture on there.
I haven't put my makeup on today.
Zal, you're just so. Okay, fine.
Hey, go for it, Dave.
We'll go with your picture.
Okay, cool. I'll let you be anonymous here. That's cool.
No, you can turn it on. I don't mind.
Okay, so you'll be bumped for just a second, Zal, and then you'll be back in as a panelist. So here we go. So
I got to know Zal probably sometime in the last couple of years, and I'm interested, Zal, in because you come from IT and tech, right?
I don't know if he's back on yet.
Oh, see, it's not even fair. And then I'll demand.
I think he's back.
Oh, now he's back as a panelist. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Zal, what do you think of all this? Coming from where you come from, right? You got all this history in IT and information, right? Isn't that kind of where a lot of your background is?
Sorry, I just came back. I missed whatever you said.
So with your background in IT and information and all of that, right? That's kind of where you spent a big chunk of your career?
Yes.
What do you think of this whole LinkedIn thing? I mean, just from a usability, you've been in this world, right? Information, and there's a lot.
I think this is just genius. I mean, I think we've now evolved. It's not just technology anymore. It's human relations. I think that's what this is all about, and how we use technology to have effective human relations. And I think it's so, I won't say complex, but it is so intricate now that I learn something every single time I hear somebody talk about LinkedIn. There's always something new, and it's evolving. And I think it's this never-ending journey of learning right now. And these tools are, I'm just learning so much. I just feel so incompetent every time I attend one of these sessions. And
there's always more to learn, right? That's why I love this stuff. And Art, I picked up a bunch of tips today. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think the key thing for us, at least with respect to Voyager and those of us that are looking for 4 or 5 clients a year potentially to grow, it's how do we balance this, what seems overwhelming, with being effective with our time, right? And I think that's what this whole conversation is about, and it's phenomenal. So thank you, Arthur. I've absolutely.
You're welcome. Well, that was my biggest issue, and I'm glad you brought that point up. So when I was financial advisor for 20 plus years, my biggest thing was I didn't want to be doing the day-to-day monotonous, regimented, click and copy paste send type stuff. Okay, that wasn't worth my time. Now, my time was best spent talking to clients, convincing them that I was the guy that they needed to help them manage their funds going forward. So when I was designing this process back in 14, 15, 16, and 17, I did 100% of the process for the first 18 months on my own, and went through several different softwares, pieced together a bunch of this stuff. And then by the time I got to about 17, 18 timeframe, I'm like, okay, this portion here needs to be done by software. This portion here needs to be done by a human being that's not me, an hourly human being, for example. Okay. This portion here can be done by this person who's maybe a little bit higher paid. I need an outbound salesperson that can call all these leads that I have. And I started putting this whole process together, and I went, okay, so where do I come into this whole thing? And I figured out that, and this is one of the biggest selling points that I've told people, is that when you have a process like this in place, you come in about the last 10%. So about 90% of this work gets done in the front end for you, and you come in the last 10%, and the last 10% is responding to those messages and following up with those people to schedule whatever you need to schedule with them, to have whatever conversation you need to have. That is where your time is best suited. So when it comes to a process like this, the last thing you want to be doing is coming in every single day and going copy, paste, send. Let me create my list. Let me invite these people. Let me figure out who didn't, join me yesterday and who did, and so on and so forth. And then, having all that minutia go on. That's 80%, 90% of the work. You shouldn't have to be doing that. That's the whole purpose of using and leveraging software, using and leveraging, staff, as well as, virtual assistants or outbound salespeople, whatever the case might be, to fit those roles so that when somebody responds, I can get in there every single day. I still personally respond to all my own messages. Okay. And it's only because I have about 15, maybe 20 a day that I have to get to. If my time is so tight that I can't respond to 20 people, then I'm doing something really good. Okay. That's the way I look at it. But that's a good problem to have. And that's the idea behind having a system like this in place.
We just got a whole master's degree from Art, and we're coming up on our hour, but so we're gonna talk about next week a little bit. But for those of you listening, on your treadmill, and everybody who takes this with you and treats it as a webinar after the fact, that's awesome. And so, but be sure to reach out to Art, and I'm telling you, this is a 60-minute master's degree in how to do it right.
That was awesome.
How to do it
Appreciate
right.
it, guys.
So thank you. Let's talk a little bit about next week. And Art, stay with us, because every week it's something new and interesting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Nigel is coming to us from the UK, and he's going to be presenting next week about buyer personas. Nigel, how are you?
I'm fine. And Art, that was really interesting. I go into the local universities to talk to first-year students to explain to the importance of getting themselves on LinkedIn and get themselves set up so that they can start growing their audience, building up their profiles and everything else. And it beggars belief sometimes. They think, I can do that in my last year before I start looking for work, because they
Nigel,
think
I'm glad you brought that up, because if I could share a quick story. My son is a sophomore at ASU down here in the mechanical engineering department. I started this process with him 18 months ago. He has 3,000 connections, all in his field of study, and he uses it to generate business for his side job while he's in school, where he does CAD renderings for jewelers.
Yeah.
Really?
I just find it so, it's so easy, especially with the youngsters, with the younger people, but they just think, I don't need to do that until the last year. I can focus on my studying at the moment. But the ones who actually engage with it, they end up with internships during the time they're studying.
Yep.
And they usually have offers of jobs before they leave with their degree. Yep. And it's just, it's madness. And students are one of the biggest growth areas within LinkedIn.
I'd be happy to help you anytime, convince them that this is something they need to do. Is that I could use that as a case study too. It's amazing. So for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, next week, I'll be talking about buyer personas, or the customer persona. It's mostly to do with the digital. One of the things, AI, big data, wonderful for big companies. But when you're talking about small companies, one, they don't have enough visitors to their websites to actually gather enough data to get any solid information. Every time they look at other people's data, it's about the other people and their customers, and they really need to be focused on their own customers. So, developing buyer personas is a way of understanding your customers. And oddly enough, it's one of those things that you can do without actually involving technology. A laptop to write the notes out and make the persona documents up. But I'll be running through that next week, helping people understand, one, actually what they're selling and what their customers are buying. And how they can understand who their customers are. And like you said in yours, and I will be saying this again next week, you mentioned at the beginning, Art, that most businesses, especially the small, I think you call them fractionals.
Fractionals, yep. Independent businesses, yep.
Yeah, independent business. They're only looking for 6-10 clients a year because the
most.
contract's over a 12-month period or 6
Mhm.
months. So it's at any one time they can't cope with more than 6 clients. And so instead of just throwing seed to the wind, hoping that someone will come away, actually say, I want that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. And I'll share a story next week of when I was in my early 20s, single.
Yeah, just a few years ago.
You say the nicest things. I can only just remember it. And the principle I used in finding young female company. There we are. So I may say things I'm not supposed to, but there we are.
That sounds like a fun one. I'm
Keep
coming
it clean.
back.
Keep it clean.
Yeah,
Keep it
please
clean. Yeah,
join us.
that'll be great.
No, it will be clean. It will be clean.
Yeah.
It's the world we're in. You know, it's everybody who's doing well right now, right? In the under Fortune 2000 world, which is the world we're in, right? I mean, that's kind of bigger than Voyager University and Dave and us, and that's okay. But those of us who live there, you know, it's such a rich place right now. There's this great resignation, and that's where it's happening. And there's all this business growth and all these things that we're talking about. But you know what the recurring theme is it's lifelong learning. We are on a learning path right now. So when you talk about buyer personas, Nigel, so it's going to be interesting because, like, guess what? You're going to go to your death still learning about buyers. Everything changes, and if you decide, like, I'm going to be on a continuous learning path, you're golden. You are absolutely golden. So it's funny. We used to think about this in terms of, I read the book 15 years ago in college. I got it. I read it.
Nope.
Yeah, right. So Nigel, we're really looking forward to having you on next week.
That's going to be great. And for everybody that stayed on all the way to the end here on the recording, thank you so much. We will see you next time and every time at office hours at 1 p.m. Central. And we will definitely see you next time. I'm going to hit stop. We can keep networking if we want. But thanks to everybody. Thanks, John. Thanks, Art, for a fantastic presentation.
You're welcome,
Great
guys.
show.
Until next time.
A great show. I've got to go pick up my son